In this tutorial, we're going to start building our site topography based on information that we'll get from external consultants. Now, I've given you a lot of additional information which I'll explain how to use a bit later on, but the first thing you need to do is you need to access the template that we've given you to start a new project. So in essence, we're going to go to new, we need to go to browse. I'll give you the link to this, but please go to the BIM library. It will be on the Teams platform. You're going to go to the Revit folder and you're going to go to families, templates. There we go. Revit 2024. So we're going to start a new project driven by this template. So I'm going to press open, press OK. Okay, so we're going to start a new project. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and save this. So go File, Save As Project. I'm going to save this on my desktop for this instance. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to call this site model. Now, just remember, I know a lot of you haven't designed your buildings yet, but you're going to design your building in another Revit file and we'll link them together on later on. For now, we're focusing on site and site context, so this will be a site model. Okay, your building model is in a separate Revit project file and then they get linked together later on. Okay, so I'm going to save this on my desktop, site model, save. Okay, the first thing you need to do, now the reason for this video as well is that the topography, so if we go to massing and site, all these tools are new for Revit 2024, so that's why we're going to cover just creating some topography and setting up your basic site using the new tools. I've got some old videos which you can go through. Just note that this will be slightly different because of the new Toposolid function. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you'll need to go to the site view. Okay, so once you've got the site view active, you need to start bringing in the information that you need. The first thing I tend to do is change the scale 1 to 1000. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about the elevation markers. We'll get rid of them later on. Okay, so we're going to start bringing in data. So we're going to go to Insert. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and link CAD. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find this information. Now, I've given you a link to this information as well. Please download all the information that you need, but if you watch this tutorial, you should be able to do this quite easily. So if you go to Cape Town, the files that you'll need, there'll be a Revit site model information, so you'll need these 3 files here in the meantime. So we're going to link a DWG file first, and it's going to be site civil. Now, please note that these site drawings are generally in meters that you get from surveyors. I've done that very deliberately. So if you want to use these files to rework in AutoCAD, you'll need to scale them up by 1000. Okay. But in essence, I know Revit will do a lot of the work for us. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that either. The first thing as well, I've got a designated origin that I'm going to use. I'm going to go and say origin to internal origin. So select that function. Then you're going to make sure it's meters. We're going to preserve everything in the drawing and we're not going to enable this function for this drawing. Okay, so I'm going to press open. Great, so we've designated this corner of the building. Sorry, it's actually the site boundary. That's going to be our shared coordinate. So if you were working with other consultants, you would all agree to share that corner because we'll have a GIS reference for that corner in essence. Okay, but I'm happy with everything. Now if we go to 3D view, so remember site and 3D view, just remember you need to expand these views sometimes. If they haven't been expanded, just expand them. So if we go to 3D view and we go and look at a site view, you'll notice that there is contour information in here that I need to use to start building my Toposolid. Okay, so I'm going to orientate my view north up. Great, everything is looking correct. Okay, so north, here's our site information, our site corner. Okay, so this is orientated to true north. Great. Now I'm going to go to massing and site. I'm going to click on Toposolid. Now, Toposolid, there's a little arrow that you're going to click on below. So we're going to say create from import. Then you're going to select the imported sketch. So CAD, select the sketch. Now you'll see, please, this is why you guys also need good AutoCAD skills. Sometimes the surveyors haven't worked in a very good layering convention, so you might have to go into the drawing and fix it. Okay, I'm going to check none. All I want to use is the contour information. Okay, now you see it's built aside, but I have noticed with the new version of Revit, sometimes it doesn't do a really good job. So you're going to have to go in and fix some of this information. Great, so with top view active and rotate to true north, I'm going to go and say edit sketch for now. So I'm going to refine this information. Select all the line work currently in the view. Then I'm going to use a line tool and I'm going to simply draw a new extent. At any point you can go and make this smaller, but for now I'm going to work with this extent because there's quite a bit of information I can use for the time being. Okay, but at any point you can go and reduce the size by doing this exact method around the area that you want to work with. Okay, now while you're in align command, if you press SZ, it will close. Sorry, let's do that again. You should have just clicked at the end there, it would have closed it. But now we've got a closed loop of, so we've got a closed set of lines. If you click on one line and you click tab, you'll notice, so click tab and then click again, tab, click again, you'll notice that these little grips go hollow. It means that all the line work is connected. If they're not connected, it won't make the surface there. If it's not like that and I'll try and finish, it'll tell you you need to make this a closed loop of lines. Okay, this is quite common in Revit. You'll notice that this will be an error continuously. So if I finish the command now, you'll notice that it's made the topography. Okay, it looks really good. Okay, great. So we've built our topography. We've got the site information in that we use to build our topography. I've just noticed as well, sometimes you're going to have to go and edit the points. So this is very different to this version. You're going to get all these little points that you can go and move up and down. So I'm going to move the extents. So this is the point that it created for the extent. So I'm going to try and get that up as close as I can, just so it works with the topography. And you can see here it's starting to work. Okay, I'm going to leave it just like that for now. So this is the only drawback to the new version, but once you play around with this a bit, I'll put another video that you can go and watch that explains this in more detail. Okay, but for now, this is a workshop we're going to do in class. Please do this in class so we can help you. Okay. Alright, so I'm happy with this result. Pull that up a bit. Yeah, that looks good. Good. So I'm going to press escape, and now you can see the site looks way better. Okay. Now, I'm going to play with the materials a bit. So just make sure that you use level 0. We'll get into the levels later on, but if you follow my video step by step, you should be able to achieve a site just like mine. So level 0 will always be at sea level. Okay, so 0. So this means if you go and measure any of these points, it'll be relative to level 0 or your level above, your sea level, or above sea level or above ground. It's technically above sea level. Okay. Alright, so now you can see that's worked really well. So I'm going to click on the Toposolid. I'm going to go to edit type. I just want to make some edits to this to make it read a bit better. I'm going to change the function of the Toposolid to be a finish for now. Okay, we can go back and change this again and overwrite some of the line work, but I'm going to make this a finish for now because technically it's a finish. It's got no structural characteristics that we're going to use in this project. Now I'm going to go and assign a better layer. So a lot of you probably won't have this view active. You might find that you probably won't see this information at the bottom. So click this little arrow down, shift this up, and I'm going to go and find some materials that I can use very quickly. If you go to the miscellaneous layer, you can see there's a lot of different layers, materials that you can use here, but you can also simply start typing. So I'm going to look for grass. I'm looking for a grass layer. Okay, and you can see it's found some grass layers in miscellaneous quite quick. So I'm going to click on this grass layer. I'm going to press the up arrow, and now I'm going to double click on this to assign the grass layer to my Toposolid. I'm going to make the thickness of this quite thick. I'm going to make it 15 meters. Okay, just because we're going to have a big basement that we need to dig into this Toposolid, so we need to factor that in. So that's why I've made it 15 meters. But at any point you can go back there and edit it again. Okay, With the material active, sometimes I like to change the appearance. I'll try and find a nice green grass color. So that's totally up to you, personal preference. So just find a good green that works for you. Okay, all that I've done is just change the graphics the way it looks. And if I press apply, press OK again, press OK again, you would notice the topography has changed to green, like your grass layer. Just remember, you can just go to hidden lines if you don't want to see the material finishes. In the beginning, we're not going to use a lot of that information, so leave it as is. Okay, so let's go to top view again. Great, so now I've got my Toposolid. Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my site view now. Now with my site view active, I'm going to change my graphics view or graphics display options to wireframe so I can see the content below. What I like to do now is I like to set up my view so I can see a bit more information, because this view, one of these views will go on your sheet, the other view is where you do a bit of work. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to duplicate with detailing. So the one view I'm going to rename. I'm going to call this WK, so this is my working view. Just remember, you've made an exact copy of the site. In essence, you're looking at the same information. What this allows you to do is adjust how you see the information. So just remember, if you delete the model in this view, it will also be got in this view. So you're actually looking at the same information. It just allows us to see the information differently. So for example, this one will go on your sheet. So we've set up a sheet for you already. So I'm going to go to site location plan, site development plan, but for now site location plan, I can drop this layer. Okay, but remember, I'm going to have to rework a lot of this information to fit in my sheet, and we'll get there soon. Okay, but if I go back to site view, so if I know that this view is going to be in my sheet, and this is where I do a lot of my work and transfer the information across. Okay, in this site view, I'm going to switch on my crop, and I'm going to show my crop region as well, because I want to crop this information just to the relevant information. Okay, good. The next thing I like to do is I like to go to View and Visibility Graphics. You can use a shortcut on your keys, VG, but if you go to Visibility Graphics, in Annotations tab, I like to switch off the elevation markers. So press E on your keyboard, and I like to switch off the elevation markers because that's what you're seeing. So if I go back to my site working, that's what these markers are. They are elevation markers for these views here. Okay, so they are quite annoying. So this is the view that's going to go on my sheet, so hence I'll switch them off. I can then hide my crop region again. Okay, great. So this is kind of what I'm looking at. Great. Now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start pulling in some AutoCAD 2D information over this 3D information. So that first DWG we pulled in, you would have noticed it has 3D values, and you can see it'll be visible in all views. Okay. That's quite annoying sometimes, so I'll actually start switching this off eventually because I've created my topography. But in site view now, what I am going to start doing is I'm going to start bringing some additional information to start refining my site plan and view. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert, I'm going to go to Link CAD. So this time I'm going to bring in my site boundaries. Remember, these are very important lines and very important boundaries. We're going to have to stick to these boundaries. Okay, so site boundaries, that's the first thing we're going to bring in. Now, I'm going to enable this to current view only. Remember, it's a meters drawing, same. And I'm going to say internal origin to internal origin. So we're using AutoCAD's internal origin. So we're sharing coordinates in essence. Okay, now everything else I'm going to leave as is. Now, sometimes when these drawings come in, they're hard to see. So what I'll do is I'll go to View, I'll go to Visibility Graphics, and in this view I'll go to Imported Categories, and I'll switch off this link. So Imported Categories, I'm going to switch off this DWG for the time being, and you can see it's brought in this other drawing beneath. Okay, and you see it's locked in its position. That's important. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this to foreground. Okay, so it means it's a 2D object and it's in the foreground. It won't be visible in any other view currently unless you copy it across. Okay, and I'll explain how to do that just now. But in essence, in this view, I've got the site information that I want to see. And at any point, if you go back to visibility graphics and you go to import a category, you can override how this information works. So I can change the site cadastral information, so I can override that. I can change quite a bit here. I can change the way it looks, the color. So here I can make it a light gray, for example. Now I can change the hatch. Okay, so I can actually do quite a bit here. I can change the pattern sometimes. This is a bit tricky because it takes information from AutoCAD, which you can't necessarily override at times. You're going to have to use full region. So just be careful when using this. Okay, you can also half tone this as well. But the site cadastral information, here I can go and add a line weight. So line weight 6 maybe. It's quite nice and thick. Okay, and then with the color, I can make that a blue or a red or a black color for now. And I can change I can give it a center line, center small, press OK, press apply. Okay, great. So you can see I can quickly use this information in my drawings and I can start pulling in this information. Now I've noticed that the text has come in, so you can go and edit that drawing and remove the text if you don't want to see the text. Okay, I use this as an overview or an overlay while I populate all the information. But you can see I've got the site boundaries, so that's great. The next layer I'm going to bring in, the next bit of information I'm going to bring in will be the building footprints. Okay, that's quite important as well. So I'm going to go to Insert, Link CAD, and I'm going to go and find those building footprints. So I've got building outlines and footprints. I'm doing exactly the same thing. Open. Great. Now that layer is underneath, so you're going to have to go and select it and change this to foreground. Good. So now you've got the building footprints. You've got the site boundaries. Okay, so let's go back to VG, Visibility Graphics shortcut. In here, I can go and say, well, okay, site boundaries. I'm going to switch off the fill for now, apply, so that's off. I've got the site boundaries, you notice the text disappears, that's quite nice. Now I've got the building footprints. Okay, so building footprints, I've got the outlines. Again, I can go and change that. Okay, so that's very neat. I can half tone this information so it's very light in the background, so you can, that's a good way to do it. Okay, good. Alright, now these layers work with orders, so you can put one above the other, but I would recommend that you have the site information above. Now you'll notice when these lines intersect like this, they don't read that well, so sometimes you're going to have to go into the AutoCAD file and make some adjustments, or you can go and start using your annotation tool, so you can start drafting. So using your lines, so if you go to detail lines, you can start drafting over this, and we've pre-built in all the line work that you need to complete this task. Okay, so in essence, I've got quite a bit of information now. Yes, just remember those other drawings are not in here yet, but I've got the 3D information that I can use as well. Okay, but remember now on your sheet, if you go to your sheet now, you'll notice that your sheet now is slowly starting to work well. Okay, so remember you can move this around. I like to use a title with no line. This makes more sense, and I like to move this information there. Okay, but you can go in, change the crop every time, put this information on your sheet. Okay, but tomorrow's exercise is just about getting to know this information. Okay, so one last step we're going to do, because I've got some site boundary information. You'll notice in your view properties over here, your properties, if you go to view, sometimes you might switch this information off. Okay, so you might lose this user interface. Sometimes you might lose project information. So here you can go and switch it back on and off. I like to split them up and dock the one side here and use my project browser here and use my properties over here. Just makes it a bit more user friendly. Okay, but if you've got a small screen, you might have to keep them stacked here. Totally up to you. Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to explain. You've got two types of orientations in your view. So if you're looking at your view, you've got project north and you have true north. Now true north is always, the project's always facing true north, but sometimes it's very difficult to work at an angle in Revit. So what I want to do is I want to change my project north's orientation to a more appropriate orientation so that I can work more accurately. Okay, So how do we do that? We go to manage. Okay, so we need to use a bit of line work here as a reference. So maybe in this first go to architecture tab, I'm going to create a reference plane, and I'm going to use the pick lines tool, and I'm going to pick this object over here, and you would have noticed it's created a reference plane. These are like construction lines. They never print. They're very hard to delete, and you can give them names to work like work planes if you're going to do a lot of 3D work as well. But I'm going to use this reference plane so that I can align my project north to this plane. So I'm going to go to manage. Okay, before we do that, before we go and break that information, I'm going to, in this file, actually let's first do that, I'll explain. So I'm going to go to manage project. So you're going to go to manage tab, you're going to go to this positions tab, and we're going to change project north, and I'm going to use this align to, and I'm going to pick this point over here. Now sometimes it'll orientate it in the correct direction, but sometimes you're going to have to go and rotate it again. So in this instance I'm going to have to go rotate clockwise, okay, because I want to work in this direction. Press OK. Now you would have noticed that it's messed up your, so what you can do is you can say reset crop and then recrop the information again. But just remember, what's very important to understand, if I change this back to true north, you would notice it'll go back to the true north orientation. Now sometimes we work in true north, sometimes we'll work in project north. Okay, so just remember this. It's very handy to know. Just remember, if you set up your sheet and you put a north point, you're going to have to rotate the north point to the correct orientation. Very, very important to understand. Okay, for now I'm going to leave this to true north. Okay, I'll leave this view for project north. I'll explain why. And then my working view, I'm going to leave this to true north. Okay. Now I have noticed in the past that this does cause havoc with some of the settings. Okay, but you can go and get your true north position. So if you click on this, you'll see you've got this marker here, the survey point. So if you keep tabbing, you can see you can copy this angle now. So that angle is the angle to true north. Okay, so that's how we had to rotate this to achieve project north and true north. So sometimes if you bring in objects now, you might have to rotate them. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert some 3D context from a format file. So how we do that is we're going to go and create an in-place component first, and we're going to make this, we're going to assign it to the generic model tab. Now I'm going to call this context. Great. And I'm going to go to insert link CAD, and now I'm going to change this, the type of file I'm looking for, to a format file. I'm going to grab this file. I'm going to leave it meters as well, because everything, I've done it this way so that you understand how this all connects. Okay, I've left that as meters, and I'm going to leave everything the same. I'm going to press open. Okay, now we might have that issue where this is done, where this hasn't quite worked because of that orientation. Okay, so that will happen, but all you need to do is you'll go and rotate this around the origin. Okay, and you're going to paste an angle in here. So remember that angle, you'll need to copy that angle and place. Okay, and press enter. Sorry, do it again, rotate. Oh yeah. And if it comes in, these are locked generally, so unpin it first. So you need to unpin it. So select the object. You might have to use the unpin tab here. Then I'm going to use the rotate tool. I'm going to go place. I'm going to place it around the origin. Just remember, very important to understand, you wouldn't have to do this if you hadn't set project north yet. So I've done this very deliberately, and I'm going to paste the angle in here. Control V. Good. Now you would have seen it's rotated everything perfectly, and I'm going to press finish. Okay, the reason why I've made this in an in-place family, it means that I can cut up the models. If I cut sections through this information, I can cut through this information. Okay, so if I go to 3D view now, in the format file, you might find that we need to enable it to be visible in Revit, so you need to go and find that file. I will fix that, so don't worry if yours doesn't work. I'll make sure that this works. So this is quite a common error sometimes. Okay, so as I suspected, you need to add this to a layer and you need to give it a name. Okay, I'm going to call this buildings because technically Revit doesn't understand what this is. So you need to add this to a layer. It just means now don't move anything. So let's make sure that must go to buildings. Great. Now if we go to information, we can go and add some additional information here. So if I double click and I select these objects, you can see I can give these categories. So you can see category mass. I can change this category and maybe I want to make that generic model, but I'm going to leave this mass for now. Okay. And we might have to enable massing in the project as well, but in theory this should work now. So if I press File, Save Sketch, save sketch locally, close that file. Now if I go to Manage and I go to Manage Links and I go to CAD and I go and say Reload, press OK. Now we should start seeing some models. Okay, I might have to do that again just to make sure that that works, and go to VG and make sure that our massing is on. So let's switch on massing. Switch on massing. Okay, that's on. Okay. Okay, that's very interesting. This should have worked. So let's just delete this again. Let's do it all by, let's do it from scratch. So that's a generic model, delete it. So let's do it again. We're going to create architecture, component, in place model, generic model. Okay, generic model 1. I'm going to call this context. Good. Now I'm going to go to insert and I'm going to go to import CAD rather. Now let's use link CAD. I'll use link CAD again. I'm going to use this format file again. Okay, meters. I'm going to press OK. And I'm going to use the rotate tool again, place on origin, Control V. Sorry, it was pinned. So unpin it, rotate. Paste the angle, finish. Okay, so now I'm going to save this in-place family. Make sure that you saved in-place family. Go to 3D views. Voila. Now it's working. Great. So we must just remember that when you're using the format file, you'll need to fix it. But now in essence, if we go to site, just keep saving the whole time. You're going to have all of this information. Now just remember, this information, you've told it to be above everything else. So these DWG files in here, you might have to send them foreground or background. So just remember, they're going to be sitting over the 3D model information below. So you might have to switch off. So if you go to VG, for example, imported categories, you might have to switch off the building outlines because maybe the 3D model will do the job for us. So in essence, we've got a 3D model now. If I can switch off head and lines, you'll notice you've got a nice 3D model with the building roof plans and everything above, and it's all on the correct site, and you can see the contours working pretty well. Now one last thing, if you go to 3D view, if you click on your topography and you want to edit the intervals of your contours, you'll need to edit the Toposolid and go to edit type. And here you can say contour display. Here you can go and edit your primary and secondary. So I'm going to change the secondaries to 250. Press apply, press OK, press apply again, press OK. Now to get this looking a bit better, I'm going to go to manage. I'm going to go to project properties, so object styles. I'm going to go to topography, topography, and here for major contours, so primary contours, I'm going to leave black, secondary, I'm going to change these to gray. Press OK, press apply, press OK. Now you'll notice that they would have been grayed out, so let's change this to 1 to 1000. You'll notice they will start displaying in a gray color. So let me just do that again, it should have. Topography. Sometimes you must Toposolid as well. Okay, so it keeps this, so that's very interesting. Primary, secondary, so it's in Toposolid. So they've kept the old category. Press OK, press apply, press OK. Now you see the lines are quite a nice faint grey. And you'll find that the building's to the correct perspective. Great. So I want all of you to try and do this in tomorrow's class. We'll be there to assist you, so don't panic.